Okay, for day 17, simplifying radicals, the first thing you need to keep in mind is your perfect squares. So if you think about your perfect squares, and I'm not going to list them all, but 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. We learned all these perfect squares. If you keep going, 10 times 10 is 100, 11 times 11 is 121. 12 times 12 is 144. 13 times 13 is 169. 14 times 14 is 196. 15 times 15 is 225. And then these will keep on going. And, you know, they go on forever. Like 20 times 20 is 400. Okay? So these are your perfect squares. And they go on forever. So the first thing you need to keep in mind are your perfect squares. Okay. Now, as you solve each problem, you have to think about what each problem is asking for. So I'm going to do a couple of the problems for you to help you out. So if you look at problem number 1, and the directions say simplify, it says 1 says square root of 512. So if you notice, it's not asking us to add, multiply, subtract, divide. It's asking us to do no other operation. All we have is a single radical, square root of 512. In this situation, you're going to see which one of the perfect squares, what is the largest perfect square that divides evenly into 512. And you have to think about the largest one because a lot of them will go in there, but the key is to pick the largest one. And if I check them, like 4 goes in there, 16 goes in there, 64 goes in there. But the largest one that I can find is, I think it's going to be 16 times 16. So it's not listed here, but if you try 16 times 16 will give you 256. Okay, and 256 goes into 512. So now what I'm going to do is rewrite the radical so it's a perfect square times whatever's left over. So 512 is really 256 times 2. Okay, where did I get the 256 from? I got the 256 because that's the largest perfect square that goes in there. Where did I get the 2 from? 256 times 2 is the only way to get to 512. Now you want to break this up. You have the square root of 256 and you have the square root of 2. Well, the square root of 256, lucky for us because it's a perfect square, is the beautiful number 16, which if you plug into your calculator, you will get that. And the square root of 2 is not a perfect square, so I'm just going to leave it alone and just put square root of 2 right next to it. So that is our final answer, 16 square root of 2. Now, a good way to check this is to put the original problem into your calculator. Okay, put this into your calculator, take the square root of it, and you're going to get a decimal. And then put this whole thing into your calculator, take the square root of it, and you're going to get a decimal. So that helps you know that they are the same and that they are simplified and they're correct. So that's one way to do the problem. Now, we could look at, for example, problem number 5. Okay, so if you look at problem number 5, it says, 5 says square root of 5 times 3 square root of 2. Now, the thing you want to remember about radicals is these are both square roots. Outsides multiply with outsides and insides multiply with insides. So I look, and what is outside here is, it's sort of like when you see a variable, even though it looks like nothing's on the outside, but you have to think there's an imaginary 1 on the outside. So when I say outsides multiply with outsides, 1 times 3 gives me 3. And then when I say insides multiply with insides, I mean radicand times radicand. So 5 times 2 is going to give you square root of 10. Okay? Now, you look at the square root of 10. Can the square root of 10 be simplified? Is there a perfect square from our list of perfect squares that goes into 10? And there is none. None of those go in there. Therefore, our final answer is 3 square root of 10. Okay, that's our final answer for that one. For the other ones, for example, number 9, 10, 11, 12, I did number 10 for you, so that should help you out with that. Okay, send me an email if you have any other questions.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.